as soon as he can. Thank you, Russ. Unless there are any volunteers to chair the meeting in his absence, I can go ahead and run through the agenda.
I vote Chris.
Okay. Thanks, Amy. All right, so let's start out with introductions. Maybe we can start from the north and work our way south. So Scott, I think you're our representative from the furthest north.
I was, but it looks like Kevin Thompson is now.
Oh, Kevin's
on, but that's all right. I'll go ahead since I did. Scott Diven, City of Healdsburg Community Development Director, and I would have volunteered, but as you can hear, I've on the flip side of a nasty cold, and we'll spare you my very white voice any further. Thanks.
Thanks, Scott. Kevin, we're going from north to south, so do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, hi, I'm Kevin Thompson, Assistant City Manager and Community Development Director for the City of Cloverdale.
Thanks, Kevin. Raphael, I see you as well from Cloverdale.
Say something, Rob.
All right. So moving further south, I don't see anyone on from Windsor yet. So let's move to Santa Rosa.
Good morning, Amy Lyle. I manage our long-range planning team, and I do have to jump off at 9:30, but I think Jessica may be popping on as well. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Amy. Let's go ahead and go over to the west, go to Sebastopol.
Hi, John Jay, Associate Planner with the City of Sebastopol.
Thanks, John. Okay, and moving further south, Rohnert Park.
Yeah, Jeff Beiswinger, Planning Manager, Rohnert Park.
Good job. I don't see anyone from the City of Sonoma yet, so and I don't see anyone from Cotati yet either. So let's move to Petaluma. Guess we don't have a Petaluma rep yet. So let's go to the county.
Hi, I'm Will Lyons. I'm with Long Range Planning here at PRMD.
Welcome, Will. And then our regional partners, so Smart and Four Leaf.
Good morning, Luke Lindenbush here, representing the Napa Sonoma Collaborative.
Hi, I'm Emily Betts. I'm Planning Manager with Smart.
And I guess I passed right through SCTA, RCPA. So Chris Barney, Director of Planning, SCTA.
And Tanya Narath, Director of Climate Programs with the RCPA.
This is BC Caps with RCPA.
Ross Clendenin, RCPA, SCTA.
Suzanne Smith, SCTA, RCPA.
All right, and we do have a member of the public with us here today.
Steve Roba with the Transportation and Land Use Coalition.
Thanks for joining us, Steve. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to announcements. Are there any announcements for the group today? All right, sounds like we're good. So let's go ahead and move on to our administrative items. So we have the approval of the meeting notes from October 20th. And this is an action item. So, but we do have time for discussion if there's any discussion on those. If not, we'll need some action on that.
So moved.
Okay.
Seconded.
All right. If there are no dissenting votes on that, we'll say that that is good. And then next item is adopting the agenda. So again, that's another action item.
Also moved.
Second.
Great. All right, thank you. So let's go ahead and move on to another administrative item. This is our Teleconferencing and Brown Act update. So as you all probably know, starting in March, we're going to be going back to regular Brown Act requirements unless something happens between now and then. So we are planning on holding hybrid meetings at that point. So the next PAC meeting that will be in person at the SCTA offices will not be our February meeting, but that would be our April meeting. So I've attached the requirements to the agenda. So, in general, we'd like to have people in the office for those meetings. There are provisions for exceptions to that, and we are planning on having some hybrid options available as well. But that's the plan right now. So also as part of that, we'll be working on updating the roster for the PAC. So we'll go ahead and work on that. If you have any changes that right now for the main representative and alternate, please let us know. If not, we'll work on compiling that and get it out to the group, and you can let us know then as well. So any discussion about that before we move on?
So Chris, there'll be a way for us to participate because it's, we're super far. It's really hard for us to get down there. But you think there'll be a way for us to continue to participate?
We've made it work in the past.
It's not great though. Huh?
Yeah. So
well, it's actually harder, I think, under the new law.
Posting the agenda and all that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll figure it out.
I mean, as all the city people who are on here, if you have city lobbyists who can work on a bill for advisory committees to not have the same Brown Act requirements, we'd sure be grateful. It's a drag.
We heard it was going to get looser and allow this, but it didn't seem to go that way. But
yeah, it did not.
So I was actually talking with someone who's on an MTC committee, and he said that what the MTC lawyers have determined, and they have plenty of lawyers, is that if you declare your home or whatever your address is as a public meeting place, or your office up in Cloverdale, Kevin, and someone is allowed to come in as a point to access the public meeting, that qualifies as a public meeting place. And so that is allowed for remote. So if you go into your office and just say, hey, City Hall, I'm at City Hall, if you're at Cloverdale, here's the address, that would be allowed. I don't know if that's,
Yeah, I think we have to post the agenda too. I don't know how far in advance, but
you have to post it the
72
same
hours.
Yeah,
72.
you have to do the 72 hours. And I think there are provisions now about you have to have a reason. Like
Yeah, a
you
reason,
can't just
and
be, I don't want to drive.
Yeah, and there's limited
my
number
reason.
of times you can take advantage of that per year,
Right.
it sounds like, which I don't think was specified. And I think the agenda itself has to note which people are participating remotely and where they will be. So it would definitely need to be proactive. It's a shame because I think this, for the same reasons as Kevin just mentioned, I think the participation in this group is probably higher than it's been historically when we're doing it in person, because it's so much easier for people to be able to participate this way. You don't lose an hour plus depending on where you're coming from in travel time, and it certainly would be
VMT.
Yeah.
and just all the benefits of doing this remotely, although I do miss seeing people in person for sure, but this certainly has been convenient and I think increased participation. So I agree, we need to petition them to provide some flexibility.
Well, and I think oddly, there's a lot of, VMT and GHG and other some of our committees have, including our climate action committee and our planning commission, have said in the past year when I've asked for input on remote versus hybrid, they said, yeah, I kind of like meeting in person, but at the same time, there's greenhouse gas emissions associated with the travel time for folks to do that. So I agree on that one.
Yeah, so that's where we're at right now. Drew Nichols here at SCTA will be helping out with that. So, starting in April, if you aren't able to make it, we'll need to compile, the just cause and emergency circumstances statements and post those. But yeah, we'll hopefully something may change between now and then, but if not, that's where we're at right now. Any last comments on that? If not, the next two items are just a heads up for our February meeting. So there will be an election of officers at that meeting. We have lost our vice chair. David Storr did retire earlier this year. So we're without a vice chair, and we usually do an annual election of officers. So that'll happen at the next meeting, along with a discussion and work session on the work plan for the PAC. So that's something that our chair wanted to work on at the end of this year and early next year. So with those, let's go ahead and move on to item number 4. And our first item under RCPA discussion is the draft tree protection ordinance. So I'll go ahead and turn things over to BC Caps from RCPA.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. And good to see everybody here. So wanted to give you a brief update on work that I've been working on and we've been working on here as a team over the last few months, and then get some feedback from all of you on kind of options that we may want to employ moving forward. So this is in relation to work we've been doing with a surveying tree protection ordinances from all the local jurisdictions throughout the county, including the County of Sonoma itself. And I've been working, this project actually came about through our partnership or our membership in the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, which is a nationwide networking organization among local jurisdictions working on sustainability issues. And as part of their, they have a natural climate-based solutions group that we participate in, and there was an opportunity for us to work with advisors from USDN, as well as to be paired up with a graduate student researcher from the University of Colorado at Boulder. And so I have been working with this young woman named Emily Walsh over the last few months, and we basically have concluded or completed our draft report. And so this is kind of a request today for review of that report from you all, or from either you all directly or from individuals on your staffs that may be the best people to take a look at it. So to step through some of the process that we've gone through, I worked with Emily and we did a survey of all of the existing tree protection ordinances across the jurisdictions, including looking at any specific zoning ordinances that mention trees or tree protection, and also looked at all of the permit application forms and kind of public outreach materials that were available for members of the public in each of the jurisdictions who may be interested in removing a tree on their private property, and the restrictions and the guidelines that are involved with that. All of that material was collected and kind of has been archived in a Google Drive, which is publicly available. And I'm realizing I do not think that I included the link to that folder in the agenda packet, but that is a folder that I'm more than happy to share that shows our kind of the archive of the documents that we collected from each of the jurisdictions. At that point, Emily then went through each of the main tree protection ordinances and really did a kind of a line-by-line analysis, looking for common terms across jurisdictions, looking at each of the tree removal kind of requirements, looking to see if there were mitigation fees that need to be paid, or the process that a homeowner would need to follow to remove a tree on their property. And then she used those to compare basically across the organizations, to across the ordinances, to really kind of get a peek of kind of how each of the jurisdictions were doing things kind of from a current perspective. We attempted to do this really to do a cross comparison between the jurisdictions, but not necessarily to do like a direct critique. hey, jurisdiction A is doing it way better than jurisdiction B. You know, it really wasn't intended to be a critique in that way, but really just a snapshot of where things stand. And so she then compiled, so that information has been compiled into a whole series of spreadsheet matrix workbooks that then use a common kind of a standard format from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, so that one can kind of look and see across the category, you know, how each of the cities in the county are dealing with different issues. Parallel to that, she also embarked on a collection of best management practices and kind of nationwide recommendations for tree protection ordinances, really relying on work from the California Relief Network, the California Urban Forest Council, and we worked very closely with the community-based group in Petaluma called Relief Petaluma, and they've really were really a great resource for us to be working with over the last few months, because they've done a lot of the similar analysis looking at the tree protection ordinance in Petaluma and being very involved with work there. So then from those best management practices that were collected, Emily really put together, it's a list of, it's about 30 recommendations. And those are split into kind of two groups. The first tier are best practices that we think apply to all jurisdictions. And if at the point when a tree protection ordinance, when a jurisdiction wants to update their tree protection ordinance, we actually think this list of baseline recommendations, our tier 1 recommendations, are one that could be easily worked into each and every jurisdictional update. So that's really kind of our base level. I think there's about 25, 26 of those. And then there's a much smaller group that are kind of tier 2 recommendations. And those are ideas that are for kind of longer term issues around longer term resilience and collaboration opportunities. One of the key ones there is an idea that was brought up by the city of Cotati a few months ago on evaluating the kind of the feasibility of some sort of pooled mitigation fund and replanting program that may be especially useful for some of the smaller jurisdictions who don't always have the internal capacity to make all of the kind of take all the steps and really follow through after, if a tree is cut down, if a mitigation fee is paid, that goes into a kind of a replanting fund. And we've heard from some of the smaller jurisdictions that sometimes those funds actually will sit there unused, either because of capacity issues, staff-wise, or because they don't necessarily have the locations in mind of where a tree should be replanted. So that was one recommendation, kind of this tier 2 recommendation that came out from the work. We didn't make any it's not necessarily a recommendation to move forward with that idea. It's a recommendation just to bring it onto the table and to evaluate interest and feasibility, and at least do some general thinking around that as to whether that would be a worthwhile endeavor for us to attempt to spearhead over the next year. One other note I wanted to call out is this was really looking at tree protection ordinances related to the removal of trees on private property. We did not really look at any of the internal documents that city staff may use to manage their own urban forest canopy. So we didn't really look at any of the tree management plans that are, say, internal to where a jurisdiction may be guidance for their Parks and Rec department or for their own Public Works department on how to manage the city-owned street trees. This was really looking exclusively, at least at this point, at kind of the public, the public removal or the removal from private property. So I think the three. So as part of the agenda packet, I included the full copy of the draft report. I think it's about 32, 36 pages. There's really only about 4 or 5 pages of really key narrative that needs to be reviewed, And then there's a 2-page kind of spread for each jurisdiction, which shows the analysis that was done, and kind of the cataloging that was done. And so there's kind of 3 things with this request that I'm hoping can be, that I wanted to kind of ask members of this committee on. First is if you have the ability to either review the report directly or to have staff on your teams take a look at it, and really kind of looking at first kind of any edits or corrections that should be made really from a factual point of view. Did we get things right? Are we, I've already been notified of at least one kind of a correction that needs to be made where I think we made kind of a factual error. So it's looking for any of those, did we get the facts right? Second is wanting to get some feedback on the recommendations themselves, in general. Are they practical and useful? And just wanting to kind of circle back and make sure that the work that we're doing actually is providing value back to you all at kind of the local level. And third, and this is a little bit more open-ended, is thinking about, given this report and where it's at currently, and given the recommendations, and given interest on what to move forward on, kind of what would be the best ways and methods for us to work together over the upcoming months? Is it the creation of a tree protection working group of which we can kind of dig into these a little bit more? Is it identifying kind of individual staff members that I should be contacting directly? Is it running everything through this committee? Or is it an existing venue that may already exist that I'm not aware of which where some of these topics are actually already being discussed and talked about, of which we should kind of take some of these recommendations and see if that's a venue for us to move forward. So with that said, I'm interested in any comments and feedback from the group. And I also want to at least open up if there's anything, Tanya or Suzanne, that you'd like to add about the process or kind of our next steps. Thank you for the time, and I hope that you all have a chance to review the report sometime over the next couple of weeks, even though I do know it is going to the holiday season. We are hoping to have this prepared, hoping to present a final draft of this report to our board in February. So I'm kind of working now over the next 3 to 4 weeks, really, to kind of identify any of the last corrections that need to be made and to get that ready for presentation to our board. So with that, thank you. I'll pass it back to Chris now.
Great. Any questions or discussion?
Well, our tree ordinance in Cloverdale is pretty new. So, I mean, I appreciate the work, and I wish, we would have had it prior to us doing an ordinance. I just didn't want to open it up again, to tell you the truth. It wasn't that difficult to get through, but I would definitely, I'll give you some comments because we kind of went through it maybe a couple years ago.
That would be actually very helpful. Any sort of real world feedback on how these recommendations fall, even if you're not planning, even if the jurisdiction is not planning to redo their ordinance in the very short term, any feedback is very much appreciated.
I just wanted to say thank you. This is great work, and it's really supportive. And we do have a tree ordinance on our list to accomplish at the city of Santa Rosa. And we don't have capacity at the moment, so we're hoping in the next year or so to get that started. So we can send staff to a working group for now if you're going to convene. And yeah, we'll definitely review what you found. And as far as what might be helpful for next steps, I don't know if you're planning to create a public website, but that might be really helpful. And if there's something interactive that could help feed outreach, that would be great. Of course, any help with outreach would be great, although we're not quite there yet. I have a feeling that the sentiment around trees, it's kind of an emotional reaction. It's very it's one of those divisive planning issues. So I'm guessing it would be similar around the county. So it might be good to consider outreach together.
You know, one thing that we're planning to do in Roanoke Park when we get our general plan adopted is we have an implementation to do an urban forestry plan, which I know is a little bit different than a tree ordinance, but maybe a little bigger picture. So we'll probably be doing that later in 2023. So, and we may be tweaking the tree ordinance as part of that.
Yeah, and BC, I want to echo the thanks for taking this on. It'll be really helpful. I think it's timely for the city of Hillsburg as well. If you guys had ranked the ordinances, I'm sure we would have been pretty close to the bottom. Ours is lousy. So, and we've been discussing the fact that it needs to be updated. So we'll probably be looking at that, and hopefully the coming year. So happy to participate in any kind of working group and that sort of thing in the future. Thank you.
All right, any additional comments? BC, when are you looking for feedback by? Is there a kind of general?
So I believe in the agenda packet, I put the end of the year, I put December 30th. That is a soft deadline for me, and I completely understand. We're going into the second half of December, and this is not necessarily the time to be seeking quick turnaround. Our deadline for final edits going to our board of directors would be mid-January. So I do have some flexibility on the timing. And the key thing at the start that I'm really looking to get is any technical corrections. And so it's even like looking, and I guess I should add, I didn't say this before, we have sent this information back to each of the representatives we've been working with at each of the jurisdictions. So it has been, in all cases except for one jurisdiction, it has already been reviewed internally by somebody on your staffs. And at this point, we're just kind of looking to make sure, did we miss anything before I take that draft stamp off? So my timing is really, the direct request is the end of the year, but I understand that may not be possible. And so there's some flexibility there into the first couple weeks in January.
Great, thanks, BC.
Great, thank you.
All right, moving on to the next item. This is the BAAQMD charge program. So this was included as information. So Tanya or BC, do you have any comments on this item at all?
Yeah, I could just highlight a couple of key points. So thank you, Chris, for putting this on the agenda. We just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of this next cycle of the charge program funding. It is an annual program, and it's been open for 2023. There's a total of $5 million in funding for EV charging, and the goal of the program is to have a minimum of 60% of the funding awarded to projects that are located in priority population areas based on Cal Enviro Screen 4.0. The Air District is taking questions on the program, and the deadline to submit questions is the 15th of February, and then they'll post all the Q&A after that on their website. And the solicitation will close on March 3rd of 2023. So it's a great source of funding for EV charging installations. And if you have any additional questions, there's a lot of information on the Air District website, and would be happy to help as well. So that's all I wanted to share. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Tanya. Any questions or comments on the group or from the group? All right, we can move on to the SB 743 VMT update. So there have been a number of new resources that have been released by Caltrans and associated groups on SB 743 implementation. I think I've included some notes in the agenda packet. I think probably the most timely and relevant for this group are some resources associated with VMT mitigation that requires ongoing funding. So Caltrans has provided some guidance on that. I've included a link to their discussion in the agenda packet. There's a 2-page just list of resources in the agenda. And then Also, there's updated guidance from Caltrans on VMT impacts for roadway projects. So I also took this information to the public works folks. So they should be aware of this as well. But Caltrans has indicated that in general, new capacity on local and collector roadways will generally be expected not to have VMT impacts. So these are small local roads, not big collectors and highways. So, but that is some new guidance that's been released by Caltrans. So information on all of these is available in the agenda packet. And please let me know if you have trouble finding any of that information or have any additional questions. But yeah, that is the report on VMT and SB 743. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about those items or any other VMT related items right now. If not, I can move on to item number 6. So this is just an informational item on SB 932. So this is recent legislation associated with circulation element updates. And so in a nutshell, this requires the circulation element updates to consider Vision Zero and safety principles. So to have discussion of those items in the updates and also reference high injury networks. So the good news is that as part of the Vision Zero action plan that we developed over the last couple of years, we developed a relatively robust high injury network. So there are a lot of resources out there available to hopefully streamline this process. So the requirements for SB 932, I believe, are going into effect in 2025. So there's a little bit of time there, but Drew sent out a brief on that yesterday afternoon as well. So information there. Carrie.
Yeah, one of the things I did notice on that briefing was that that there was actually, unlike a lot of unfunded state mandates, there was a recognition that this would require funding from the state. Are you aware that there would be any funding available or anything like that to help with this stuff?
Not aware of anything specifically yet, but keep an eye on that for sure. So, and I think there are other potential funding sources that this could probably fit under as well. There is the Safe Streets and Roads for All federal program. So there are some other funding sources, but I'll keep an eye on this and do a little research and see if there's anything in the works to fund this specifically. Steve.
Yes, I understand that the Air Resources Board is considering increasing the reductions of vehicle miles traveled at its meeting this morning. I can't do 2 places at once, but I suggest that people keep an eye open for what their goals are and how it affects local planning.
Great, thank you, Steve. Any more questions or comments on SB 932? All right, that brings us to our standing updates, item number 7. This is the time for member updates. So I'll go ahead and open it up to the group and see if anyone would like to provide an update.
Sworn in new council members last night.
Oh, go ahead.
2 new council members last night. See how that goes. Yeah, that was fun. Good stuff.
Thank you, Kevin. Carrie, did you have an update for Sebastopol?
Yeah, just a couple. We did get our HCD comment letter back on our housing element. It was actually thankfully pretty short. We've made some modifications. We are not going to resubmit and wait for pre-certification. We are just proceeding with our hearings at this point, since we felt like, I mean, I've had conversations with our reviewer and it sounds like we'll be able to make those what they need. We did have actually our Tuesday night, our planning commission formal public hearing on that, and they have recommended it to council. So that is now scheduled for January 3rd. So hopefully we can get all this done actually by the January 31st certification date. We'll see. And we did receive a 80 unit multifamily for sale project by City Ventures. This was, I don't know if this is Chris, this is the one that I thought might be the significant update to the pipeline. We had a preliminary meetings with them, with their planning commission and design review board back in 2019, and they went pretty dark over the years of COVID, but they obviously are now coming back and have submitted that. So, and that so far they're, you know, being very responsive in terms of what our planning commission has asked for. I believe they have 30% ADA units or adaptable units instead of just the normal 10% or whatever it would be normally. So they are responding to some special needs housing stuff that is of interest to the city. So happy about that. And we have 3 new council members. We had 3 longstanding folks, including our rep to RCPA, SCTA, retire this year. So Councilmember Gurney, Mayor Slater, and Councilmember Glass. We have 3 new. The meetings are pretty light, although we do have a update to them from our Climate Action Committee next Tuesday. And we have, that group has prioritized the, put together a work plan of the 10 or so priority actions they want to work on in the next year or so. Happy to send that out to folks who are interested. A lot of it includes electrification of existing buildings, outreach, and a few other things. Participation in the involvement in the bicycle pedestrian master plan that's coming up at the county level. So that'll actually be helpful for us to supplement our staff, supplement John in participating in that. So they'll be presenting that to council next Tuesday, and we'll get maybe a little bit better sense of the new council members' priorities. The 2 remaining council members were elected mayor and who didn't have their terms up were elected mayor and vice mayor due to their experience in the big transition for us. So we'll see where that goes.
This is Jeff. I can just go real quick. We are also on target to adopt our housing element by the end of January. So we're going to the planning commission in the middle of the month and city council just under the wire at the end. And we think we're going to be able to get a letter from HCD before the planning commission, but it'll be close. We have a pretty stable council. We have 1 new city council person. And we're getting a new city manager, so that might change things. We shall see. That's all I got for today.
Great, thank you. I did see that Noah from Katati has joined us, and also Orlando from Caltrans and Ada from ABAG. Thank you. Good to see you all here today. So we're just doing member updates at this time.
All right, thanks. Chris, I can jump in if we're going alphabetically. Yeah, sorry, we had our employee appreciation breakfast this morning, and so I was running a bit late. I'll keep it brief. Yeah, we had a council updated or seated our new council on Tuesday. 2 new council members, and you guys may be aware we had 2 new council members at the last election. So this is kind of a big deal for Katati because most of our previous council had been serving for a decade or more. And so over the last 2 elections, we've had a very significant shift. So we'll have a very busy new year, I'm sure, as we get into goal setting and moving through some of their kind of agenda and updates. But we will be prioritizing a reach code modeled after the Santa Rosa ordinance. So that will be going, and we have that on track. We're working on finalizing our parklet program to create a streamlined process for people who want to keep their outdoor dining. The tents in downtown Cotati will be gone by April 1st, if not sooner, but that'll be kind of the end date. We were able to get a lot of our kind of multifamily streamlining efforts adopted. These are essentially implementing some of the programs from the 5th cycle housing element. We hadn't gotten to all of them, so those are all in place. Luke and any other 4-leaf staff, be aware of that. Those are complete now. Bike and ped, we've tried to kick that off and kind of struggled just given staff capacity, but we are pivoting back to that, and we'll start to do some work and are looking forward to partnering with SCTA staff on their regional effort. We have some funding to contribute to that, and so we're hoping to kind of do a hybrid approach where we do some and we leverage your guys' effort and really kind of get a really comprehensive update going. And then last time I mentioned our VUNERF and urban ag ordinances, those are in place. And I think I saw some requests in the chat at the last minute for copies of those ordinances. I will send those out to folks if you're interested. Kind of interesting thing. So VUNERF is a Dutch word, and it's basically shared streets, but it's basically trying to get more pedestrian and bicycle functionality and use into very small private streets, essential residential drive alleys, and it's kind of an interesting thing. So you put amenities and traffic calming and chicanes into these driveways to basically really slow down traffic and make them more approachable to all the normal residential activities that happen like in an alleyway where kids are playing and those types of things. And then urban agriculture, we made some changes just to allow more people to do agricultural activities throughout the city. And we kind of, one of the unique elements is now everyone can legitimately sell produce and even their eggs that they have in their that they produce on their site, and even in small single family lots, and that's a by right use. There's a lot of specifics, but it's pretty significant change from most folks' standard zoning about that. So if there's an interest, like I said, I'll share it, and then people can pick and choose if kind of that becomes a priority in their communities. And then our housing element, we're not going to hit January. I'm jealous of Jeff and the other folks who will be getting theirs done ahead of January 31st, but we're hoping to get our 90 days ends mid-February. So thanks everybody, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Noah. Scott or Will, any updates from Healdsburg or the county?
Yeah, I'll be real brief. We also have submitted our housing element, but we're waiting for our first comment letter. So I share Noah's envy of the others that are further away and might actually finish on time. But I feel like we've got a pretty strong element, and hopefully we'll have relatively few comments. So we're looking forward to getting that back. And Healdsburg seated 2 new council members, I want to say a week or so ago. So looking forward to working with them. I think we'll have a pretty strong council without too much. Shouldn't be a big swing in either direction. So, and we've got several affordable housing projects that have been recently approved and some that are nearing completion on construction. So things are moving along up here in the Berg, and happy holidays to everybody.
Yeah, basically the same here. Our housing element is well and truly on the way. We're getting close to the end, hopefully, knock on wood. We also are working on our tree protection ordinance overhaul as well. And we have kind of a lot of big irons in the fire like SDC that are kind of wrapping up. And then once that's done, we're throwing the whole anvil of the general plan into the fire to start working on that. So lots of things down the pipeline. BMT is coming as well. So yeah, just a lot of little things happening right now.
Great, thank you, Scott and Will. Let's go to our regional partners. Ada, Orlando, or Emily, any updates from ABAG, Caltrans, or SMART?
With BAAQMD, we had a little bit of a disastrous situation in getting our webinar for the PDA, PPA grant off the ground yesterday. So we're, though we had a lot of participants, thank you guys for holding on for that. But we're going to be redoing the webinar on Friday at 11 o'clock. So if you are unable to attend, there is a call for proposals for PDAs and PPA, technical assistance and planning grants. So one, it's available to attend. We'll also, tomorrow at 11 o'clock, also we'll be recording it. And the major kind of underlying message there is if people are interested, feel free to contact me and schedule an office hour to discuss what your ideas might be before you kind of, go all the way down that path, and we can help flesh some of that out. Also, we have a consultant has been approved to assist with some of the TOC guidelines and kind of policy and support. So that's something we're expecting to put out some guidance kind of before summer, but also we'll be developing some tools and resources with that. So I know there was some concern, but hopefully there'll be opportunities to participate and influence kind of what products we put out for you all. That's all.
Great, thanks, Ada. Is there a link to participate in the updated webinar on the ABAG website, or what's the best way to?
Yeah, it should actually send me a note and let me get it to you, because now you're reminding me that we didn't update it. We just sent it to everyone who registered. So let me if you're interested, let me know and I'll send you a link, but also I'll talk to Joy right now and get it on our website. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Ada. Emily or Orlando, any updates?
Hi, good morning. Not really much to update everyone on, just we're having our grant open house for the Sustainable Communities and Strategic Partnerships program, January 5th. I don't know if you already known that, but that's just the only thing I have.
Great, thank you.
I don't have a lot from SMART. We are making a small service change in January to meet up better with the ferries on the weekends, but nothing substantial. We have a new senior planner starting in a few weeks who's going to be dedicated to the pathway, all things pathway. So I will make sure to bring her to this next meeting so you can meet her. We're excited to have more energy focused on that. And in general, I think we're just trying to spread the word that SMART is running more service than we ever have, even pre-pandemic. I keep running into people who say they're not commuting on SMART because we're not running service anymore. And I'm just trying to bust that myth. So yeah, that's all I've got. Happy holidays.
Thank you. All right, I think everyone's had a chance. So let's go ahead and move on to public comment. Steven, any additional comments before we move on? All right, it looks like I did skip over item 7.b, which is just a link to our planning activities report from our last board meeting. So this is just a summary of things we've been working on as part of the SCTA planning staff. So Steve, did you have a public comment?
No, I'm trying to catch up with what the Air Resources Board is actually doing. So
great. Thank you. And thank you for the reminder, Steve. Appreciate that. All right. With that, we have our final item, action item to adjourn. And before I would like to wish everyone a happy Christmas and happy holidays as well.
Thank you.
Can we get an action to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Take care, everyone. See you in the new year.
Right.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.